I'm Zachary Cartwright. This is Water and Food.
Our customer feedback was that things weren't as accurate as they needed to be.
All of a sudden, instead of trying to be a regular moisture, a high moisture, or a low moisture, we're like, well, let's just stick in the middle and aim for a 0.5 water activity. We're not in any brick and mortar store yet, but we're the number one selling dried fruit on Amazon for the past 4 years running.
2020 has definitely been a challenge. We came into the year kicking and screaming. I want to make it to the end of the year and not be broke.
Water has been called the luck of the planet by Daniel Boorstin, and its impact and significance are evident everywhere in the foods that we eat. Every year, billions of dollars are spent by food manufacturers to move water in and out of food products. As a food scientist, I am on a mission to understand how this can be done better. Today's guests are Jake and Kay Samuel of Sunrise Fresh. Sunrise Fresh is a multi-generational family farm. As food producers, measuring moisture in their products has historically been a challenge. That is, until they discovered the power of switching to water activity as their primary measurement. From improving long-standing product lines to developing new snack combinations, Sunrise Fresh is all in on water activity. So let's catch up with Jake and Case.
So something that I'm interested in is, what's it like growing up with a family business? And as you both are growing up, did you picture yourselves being a part of this business, or when did that happen for you?
Casey, are you laughing at the question?
Yeah, I when I get this question, I can't help but laugh. Most people ask, like, how in the heck can you work for your mom and dad and have your two older brothers as your bosses? Well, I never pictured myself working for the family business when I was going through high school and college. I was playing baseball that was going to be my job. That was going to be my life. That was what I cared about. And the big guy upstairs decided that I was not destined to be a Major League Baseball player for the Giants. So I had to make a decision to come back home to the family business, and they welcomed me with opening arms. I actually started farming for the first 3 years when I came home, but after that, I realized I had a knack for sales and associating with people and creating new relationships. So I stumbled on my way down here to Sunrise, and now the rest is history, I guess you could say. So to answer your question, Zach, no, I never imagined myself working for my family companies.
And what about you, Jake?
Honestly, I wouldn't trade anything away.
Yeah.
What about you, Jake?
For myself, I've always thought I'd be working on the farm, working in some capacity in some way or another. I always thought I was just going to be a farmer, but it took a while for me to realize kind of that my attributes are not only in learning about what kills a bug on a cherry and what diseases that cherry tree have, but it's a lot more beyond that. And I kind of got thrown into a lot of this in a sense of where, like, my dad always said, like, you go to school, learn how to run a business, not how to farm. I can teach you how to farm. And that's exactly what I did. So I got thrown into this, is that thrown into running the company in a sense and making sure things are going the way they should be and helping everything move right along. And I think growing up between Case, Zach, and myself, we've always kind of known we'd work together, and it's definitely a challenge. Like, there's days that we definitely don't want to be working together, but at the end of it, we always can laugh, joke, and have a beer at the end of the day and be okay with one another. But working with family is definitely a challenge, and I think our dynamic in the family is strong enough that we can get along, get things accomplished, and move forward with what we need to get done. But it's definitely not easy.
Yeah, I actually have a few brothers myself, and I can't really picture working with them. But I think there's a lot to be said that you guys are working as a family unit and that you are, able to reach your goals. And what are some of those goals that you're focusing on for this year?
I want to make it to the end of the year and not be broke.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are in that boat.
Yeah, 2020 has definitely been a challenge. We came into the year kicking and screaming, ready to conquer the world. We had a lot of big projects moving, and it's definitely been met with a lot of challenges. And Case can really talk about those more than I can, but it's definitely moved from a very positive year in a sense. We were going to be in a lot of different markets and a lot of different attributes, and now it's gone back to like, okay, what shifts do we need to make? What needs to keep the ball moving forward, while continuing to maintain our current business and current customers, make sure that they're going to keep producing what they need to produce with our products.
Mhm.
And then even on another sense too, on the farming side of things, we've all had to sit back and take a look at our production costs and farming costs, and we got to kind of, like, with everything being as depressed as it is, it also puts commodity prices on the other side of it too. It makes things a lot much more difficult to
Mhm.
really figure out how to make a profit when everything else is being thrown at you. When your costs are still the same and going up, it makes trying to make farming equitable that much harder.
Right.
But for that, and in a sense, that that's what being a farmer is. Like, you're dealt with every different scenario you could probably think of in a year's time, and some people deal with in a lifetime. So it's, if anything, it's just nothing really new for a farmer, but it's definitely a new challenge that everyone's trying to conquer with.
Right. Definitely a new landscape. And in case, why don't you touch on some of the other challenges that you've had to overcome with this pandemic? You know, things from
Sure.
suppliers to staffing to
Mhm.
operations, distribution. What have you
Yeah.
seen from your perspective?
Well, Jake's job is to be Johnny Raincloud. He brings everyone back down to earth and makes sure that we're all on the right path and moving forward.
Uh-huh.
I'm in sales, so my job 80% of the time is going into his office and say, "Hey, Jake, I got this great new deal, but I need you to make X, Y, and Z products and I need it in 2 weeks."
Mhm.
But that's the perks of my job. But no, sales has been interesting this year. Just starting off with staffing, trying to make sure all our employees stay healthy and we're able to meet demand and meet ship dates. And it
Mhm.
gets really interesting when you have one employee show up one day and they're fine, and the next day they show up and they have a fever. It gets like I mean, heck, now I have my whole sales team when someone coughs, like you look at it like, you okay? Like, it's just one of these new things you have to deal with nowadays. But with the new intricacies moving forward, I think this has really actually gained about a 400% increase over the last 2.5, 3 months of people shifting from buying food in the store to online. And I
Mhm.
really think that is going to mess up a lot of different channels. People normally go to a food show, then that food show, you're in Costco, Walmart, and Target, and from there on, you're good. But
Mhm.
now you have Amazon, you have Hubba, eBay, I mean, Thrive.com, and these disruptors have really thrown a rift through the industry where people like for Sunrise Fresh example, we're not in any brick and mortar store yet.
Mhm.
But we're the number one selling dried fruit on Amazon for the past 4 years running. And
Mhm.
it's really allowed us to bring a different aspect to meetings with customers instead of just saying, hey, we're this new and unique product. But no, I have analytical data from Amazon's analytics of who buys my products, how old they are, what their annual income is, where they're at, how they found us, what they're using it for. I mean,
Mhm.
instead of relying on your distributors like Unify or KeHE to just say, hey, yeah, you're selling good, but now you have complete control over that, and you have the ability to go around them directly to consumer. And that's the future
Right.
of our industry, and it's looking pretty positive.
Yeah, that's a lot of information at your fingertips by using those
Mm-hmm.
online sellers. So yeah, it's really
Exactly.
interesting to see how this pandemic is causing people to look more online. And for a
Exactly.
company like you guys who sells a lot of product online, I'm sure you're seeing
Mm-hmm.
increases in sales using that direction. One thing that I want to shift our attention to is focusing on the water in your products. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to learn more about how moisture has been measured in your products in the past. You know, how would your father, your grandfather look at this measurement, and what problems would they have in the past with respect to moisture?
What our grandfather did in the past, like in the 90s, it was kind of arbitrary. He just stuck some cherries in a dryer and dried it down to where he liked it, and that was about all she wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we started working on this for commercial use and selling to different customers when they were requesting different moisture levels from 20 to 22%, for example, we had to really get scientific with it. And the Dried Fruit Association has a great moisture meter that's been used for decades in the prune and raisin industries. So we were using that technology, and that is a very simple system to where it would give a number of it would reflect off a certain electronic wave variance in between two electronic nodes with a ground product in the center of those nodes, and it would then in turn point you to a graph, and then that graph would be like, okay, these are cherries. Well, there's no graph for cherries, so it's prunes. Okay, prunes are close enough. All right, so prunes show this number and that number. Okay, gives me 28%. Okay, great, it's 28% moisture. Cool, let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to the point of just getting so frustrated because it never seemed to be accurate. Like, you felt like it was, but at the end of the day, it wasn't. Our customer feedback was that things weren't as accurate as they needed to be for their own records too. So then that's when my dad started researching different moisture detectors, and that's when we stumbled across you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And we purchased the Aqualab Duo, I believe, in 2013. And in doing that, it really opened our eyes up to what water activity is. Like, we had no idea what water activity was even before meeting and talking with you guys. And over the last couple of years, we've noticed water activity being more of an importance, even more so than moisture has been.
And by making that switch to water activity, what types of improvements have you seen in your production, and how are you using that water activity data on the production floor?
We've been able to really shift towards water activity since it became kind of more of a consistent number that we could focus on. Every time we said we wanted 16 to 18% moisture, we sent it to 2 different labs, and we get back 3 different numbers from both labs, and then even our own numbers would be something different. So the water activity really became more of a concrete number, since those always seem to be closer to what our third-party labs would be sending back to us, and even what our customers are starting to look for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely been a learning process, and I think even some of our customers that have professional food scientists on staff don't really understand the full aspects of what water activity really can show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a food scientist. I'm merely just a cherry farmer in some days. So it's hard for me to convey that to some customers, but they're starting to understand it and work with it. And so, like, for example, like, we have one customer that wants our low moisture product, and we know that low moisture product is going to be at 0.58 water activity, and so we consistently can hit that 0.58 water activity out in the plant to the point of where our plant operators know that on Scala, after the sample gets taken on Aqualab, it gets put onto Scala. They can look right at Scala in live time and see where that water activity is, and make adjustments in the plant to make sure that we hit that water activity level, because that water activity in any given lab or any one person will say, no, that's 18%. No, that's 12%. No, that's 10%. Well, water activity is pretty hard to lie. So if we can show that we're going to consistently hit 0.58 water activity and it works for our customers, then I really don't need to know what moisture is. If I can hit that water activity day in and day out, customer likes it, then we're doing something right.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to touch on that you mentioned is, a lot of food scientists, even though they have heard of water activity or moisture absorption isotherms, they don't really put it into practice sometimes. I've seen a lot of industries where moisture content is just the standard, and because that's the way it's been done for decades. There's sometimes some hesitation to using newer technology or looking at a different way, such as water activity. Do you see other dried fruit companies making the shift similar to the shift that your company made?
In some aspects, yes. I think the more that it gets out there, and the more the world is kind of shifting towards more technology too, and more accurate numbers and more accurate recording, more accurate lab results, they're definitely seeing the water activity, I think, going towards being more reputable in that
Mhm.
regard. I think in the time that I've been working with the water activity and working with Meter Group, we've definitely seen more people being educated on the water activity side from our customers and even other companies that deal in dried fruit. And
Mhm.
I definitely say it's heading there. Case, have you seen that from your side?
Let's put it this way: our a lot of our chocolatier companies use low moisture fruit, anywhere from 8 to 12%. Well, we know what moisture content we need to be at to hit our ranges,
Mhm.
and when it comes down to it, it from a sales standpoint, if I can know if one of my clients needs a low moisture or high moisture, I can trust that my production team's using that to its best extent.
Mhm.
And water activity is just as soon as I've come to explain it to a lot of my clients, they don't even use moisture anymore, just because it's so precise and we can replicate that over and over and over again now,
Mhm.
which has become made my job a lot easier. Instead of when our dried cherries get shipped to a client and that client does their own water moisture test and it comes back at an 18%, and then they wanted a 14% moisture. I always ask them, well, what's your water activity? And, well,
Mhm.
my water activity is at 0.54. It's like, you're right on the money. It's just like, it just all depends on how they ran their personal tests. Did they crush the fruit
Right.
beforehand? Did they shred it? Did they just run it whole? There's so many variances and so many different ways of doing this. If the whole industry could switch to water activity, that'd make all of our lives a lot easier, I think, and also make our specs that much more accurate.
Right. Yeah. Moisture content tends to be all over the board. You usually have, a few percentage um, in standard deviation. So it's really hard to know. And what I've known or what I've noticed with a lot of different companies like yours is that by using water activity, it really gives you a standard, and then it helps you when you're talking
Exactly.
to other companies to make a comparison that is valid. One thing that I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to ask you about, Case, is I saw you posted something today or just yesterday about some new products that you're working on, a new
Exactly.
product
Mm-hmm.
line. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that and maybe how water activity was considered when you put that product together?
It's actually water activity was pretty vital in our new snacking line. So
Yeah, Case isn't joking.
it,
Water activity was
yeah,
huge with this
it's
project.
so the San Joaquin blend. As I said at the beginning of the podcast, we're fourth generation family farmers, and for the last 60, 70 years, my mom and her mother before that had been eating cherries and walnuts together. And we've been drying cherries in our family for a long time now. And they've always just ended up on our family table, just mixed it into a bowl. And
Hmm.
California walnuts and dried cherries go hand in hand together. The starchiness of the walnut, the sweetness of the cherries just melds really well. And my dad and I were sitting there eating it one day at my mom's kitchen table, and I was thinking to myself, like, we need to make this. Like, this more people need to eat this.
Hmm.
And that just led to me going down the pathway of like, okay, what is it going to take? How is this going to be happening? You put a little salt in there. That salt kind of ties it all together. So that's what gave us San Joaquin blend. The name behind that, San Joaquin County, that's where our family farms are. Cherries and walnuts are both grown in San Joaquin County, and it just kind of fit. It really worked with the whole family nostalgia effect of our brand that we want to push to our customers, is that we're not large or laborious. We're little, likable, and lovable. We're just a small family company, and we put our heart and soul into our products. And turning towards the development of it, it was a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be, because I was like, my dad would always roast the walnuts, and we'd take our dried cherries mixed together, and it wouldn't last any more than a couple hours on the family table. But if I'm going to make a shelf-steady product, and combining a dry roasted California walnut, which has a high oil content to begin with a dry cherry that isn't a little pebble that has a lot of moisture in it still together, and get a 6-month shelf life out of it, turned to be a huge process that took a lot longer than I thought it was going to. So looking at it from that perspective, we learned in our shelf life tests that a high moisture cherry with a water activity above a 0.6 would actually wick away moisture into the walnuts, causing the walnuts to go rancid. So we had to do a lot of research behind that with our cherries, and water activity. The moisture is what we're aiming for, because I didn't want to use a low moisture fruit, because low moisture fruit that we use for our chocolatiering doesn't really taste the best when it's standalone by itself. When it's enrobed in chocolate, it really works well. But standalone, a low moisture cherry, you're kind of just not on some dry beef jerky or something. It just doesn't really work too well. So we still wanted to be in between moistures there of about a 0.56 water activity. And it took Jake and Eric, our head of food safety here, a long time to figure out where we needed to be at. All of a sudden, instead of trying to be a regular moisture, a high moisture, or low moisture, we're like, well, let's just stick in the middle and aim for a 0.5 water activity. And because whatever our moistures came out, they never were the same. But that 0.5 worked out beautifully. And now we have a 6-month shelf life on all of our nut products, or nut snacking products. And it's been pretty vital to these new projects using Meter Group's technology. It's been pretty impressive.
Yeah, water activity is a huge driving force for moisture migration. And this is a project we help a lot of people with at Meter, is helping them to understand, which way moisture is going to move, and how water activity can be adjusted to keep the desired textures that you're after. It's 3:00 on Tuesday afternoon, and I'm looking at a picture of this new product now, and it's about snack time for me, and I wish I had one of these
There you go.
to snack on. So I might be reaching out as a follow-up to see if I can
Sure, no problem.
a few bags. So Jake, do you have anything to add to that production process, or any other new products that you're working on?
Not necessarily. The San Joaquin blend we're pretty excited about. And I think it's going to be a pretty good hit for some healthy snacking. It's a fun, different trail mix that doesn't have chocolate M&Ms all throughout it. So it's something new and exciting that I'm pretty pumped about. And Case hit it right that it was definitely difficult, and didn't realize the need of water activity between both products, not just the cherries. It also was the walnuts too that we need to be focusing on. So it definitely was a fun project, and it's still in the works. Like, we're not out of the woods yet, because it's going to be a continuous learning experience as we continue this thing out for further production. So it's definitely an interesting project. And then another thing we have had for a long time, but and are still moving more towards trying to get out into other stores, are our snack bags from the cherries, blueberries, and peaches and apples, pears. Trying to get, instead of seeing Welch's fruit snacks in a bag, I'd like to see dried fruit in a snack bag in stores. So keep an eye out for that. Those are on Amazon too. If you have any desire to check those out and leave a nice little comment, it'd be great.
Well, I just want to thank you guys for being a part of the second episode of Water and Food, and for sharing a little bit about your family company and some new products, and explaining how you use water activity. After this conversation, I'm pretty hungry, so and I'm sure the listeners out there are as well. So thanks again, Case and Jake, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
I'm Zachary Cartwright. This is Water and Food. Find this podcast on Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.